You know what would be an awesome collector's item? If someone made a Texas Chainsaw Massacre cookbook, like a coffee table book.
A cookbook?
Yeah.
That was also a coffee table book?
Right.
Huh.
I mean,
what kind of recipes would be in it?
Well, because if you watch the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's there's this great part where one of the guys from the family he wins a chili cook-off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the judge like bites on something. He's like, "What's this?" He's like, "Oh, it's probably just a little peppercorn or something like that." He's chewing. He got like a piece of a human tooth or something in there.
The last round of Rolling Grill chef, Drayton Sawyer!
That's the guy with his face cut off over in the movie.
Is he?
That's part of the family.
Okay. That's a good character.
The second year in a row. This year, Drayton, you've got to tell the secret of that fabulously tasty chili.
No secret. It's the meat. Don't skimp on the meat. I got a real good eye for prime meat. Runs in the family. Whoop, whoop. It's one of those hard-shell peppercorns. I gotta say, I love this town. This town loves prime meat.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see,
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Now look, here's a house full of bees. You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Listen, let's get one thing straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
I've got to say, I'm telling you that I'm scared, but I will
I think some apologies are in order.
Got me.
Really?
Yeah.
Porno for Pyros.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh, I
haven't heard that in 20 years.
I know. I haven't listened to it a ton, but I really like
that first album
band. Let me click on this here link. The reason I picked that song or that band actually is because a while back you brought up, I think I must have played Big Country by Big Country.
Right.
And I tried to find the album also named Big Country, and I don't believe there is one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did I get that wrong?
Well, so you may have, unless I'm mistaken, but I went down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah.
To, what other bands? And Porno for Pyros is.
Ah, okay.
I don't know. Is there a name for the trifecta?
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know exactly what album that song came off of, but I like that song, so I played it. But some other bands.
Oh, cool.
That have done the same thing. Black Sabbath. Iron Maiden.
I should have caught that one.
I'm not going to list all the bad ones. New Kids on the Block. That should have been the first one off their tongue. Damn Yankees.
Damn Yankees. Forgot about that super group.
Motorhead.
Oh.
And Meat Puppets.
Nice.
Yes.
Did you ever get into Meat Puppets?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great band.
Good band. Yeah. I think, did I see them?
Iron Maiden and Motorhead are two that, as a lifelong metal guy, I definitely should have got.
Well, and Metal Church. who I used to work with the singer,
Right.
Mike Howe.
Yeah.
From that band. Who
He was the second singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
was the better singer. I remember when he joined the band, that band got way better.
He was such a cool dude. He killed himself.
Yeah.
Actually, a little while back. But
I remember hearing about that.
I loved that guy. I love working with him. He's so funny. Just a great dude. But,
yeah.
So there you go. The trifecta.
So I have one critique I got from the podcast is that people were like, it just gets so dark. You guys get into some of the darkest stuff. I was like, yeah, I agree. But that's the interesting stuff. And we always try to make light of it at the end, not to be just complete dour hour the entire time.
No, the end is always very, very dark. That's not true.
I always start out with
fun of it.
I always start out with the intention of like, okay, silver. Oh man, everything's just fucked. But so one request is, why don't you guys
do the uptick of your voice at the end of each sentence, like you're asking a question,
right?
Like that,
because it's genetic gene therapy that they made everyone inject in their body, or you'll lose your job, like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is I had a request. Why don't you guys mix it up and not only do bad, negative, dark things, but mix it up with like some good news, right? So I was scrolling through the news and I was like, why don't you find something that like kind of makes people feel good? You know what I mean? Some more like lighthearted stuff. Because there is a lot of good in the world, right?
I like where this is going. I know you too well.
And so I'm scrolling through the news and I found Larry Nasser stabbed in prison multiple times by another inmate. I'm like, hey, look at that.
Well, allow me to erase your silver lining.
Oh, okay.
This is not good news.
It's not, actually. It was at first. It was at first. But he was stabbed multiple times by another inmate, I guess, after making a comment. They were watching women's tennis, as one does in prison when you're in there for life.
Sure.
He made some comment about the women, and some other guy just stabbed him several times. Now, here's the problem.
Was for the comment or for all the child raping?
Yeah, it's just, I think these kind of things run as a confluence. They come together like those.
Okay.
Yeah. But here's the thing. He was stabbed multiple times, like double digits was what they're saying. Chest, neck, head, shoulder, all over the place. He still lived.
Yeah.
And which made me think, it's like, come on, guys, up your stabbing game. Like,
seriously, now he's going to be in protective custody, probably isolated. Like, maybe it was an inside job to get him protected. I mean, you know how
like a false flag?
The elitists, no, not a false flag, but all these elite psychopath, warmongering pedophiles are constantly.
I am so sick of these warmongering pedophiles.
I was stalling so you could find the right button there. They staged a fake stabbing in order to get him into protective custody. And they told the person stabbing him, you can stab him as many times as you want. Don't hit any vital organs or arteries.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need the name of the guy who stabbed him. And it could be CIA.
Yeah. I think it's
deep state asset
at this point. Yeah.
Right. We're going to talk about some conspiracy theories today.
Are we?
Yes.
I got one for you.
Okay, go for it.
This is not a conspiracy theory, though.
Okay.
Have you noticed a serious lack of attractive people walking around?
I might be with you on that one, but what I have noticed is profoundly unhealthy people are around me.
Which is kind of, the unhealthy people are, you're not going to find many attractive unhealthy people unless you're talking about like heroin addicted sluts or something. Sometimes
good band name.
They read as attractive. I feel like, and maybe it's just a change in my mentality or something, but I feel like in where we live, we're not in Southern California or New York City or even San Francisco like we used to be, where hot chicks just were everywhere you look, right? In our town, there are plenty of beautiful women, but they don't come out until springtime. All winter long, you don't see them. I don't know what happens, but in spring, they usually come out.
Yes.
Right? Well, that didn't happen this year.
No.
We still go to all the same places, and you just don't see these women walking around anymore. Mm-hmm. And my theory is that, one, they've gotten unhealthy.
Okay.
So the women that would otherwise be.
Wait. I thought everyone took the pandemic as an opportunity to get in really good shape.
Right. That's the myth.
Did that not come true?
That is not true.
Because these are the same people that wrote the articles about gaining the COVID-20.
Exactly. I know. With
which is it here?
Zero irony. Yeah. No, nobody bought. People bought Pelotons and they used them for a week, but nobody got into shape over COVID. So I think you have a lot of, because of the lockdowns, you have a lot more fat people, and you could take an attractive person that's maybe a 6 to 8 walking around, put 15 pounds on her, and she's going to fall out of the realm.
Okay.
Right? Going to drop down a couple of numbers. Right. The other thing that's going on is that being unattractive has become popular. People fuck their looks up on purpose. They wear dorky clothes, glasses that don't look, too big. The mom jean fucking phenomenon that's been going on.
I was not a fan.
Stupid haircuts with blue hair and piercings in your face. Like, this is all
You just described me in my 20s, by the way.
Yeah, but you were quite attractive.
Thank you.
You had a few numbers to lose.
Drag these compliments out of you.
I really think that the woke ideology that we're all suffering through right now has made it cool to be unattractive. And so people are intentionally making themselves unattractive.
I would make one caveat there. I know where you're going, and this is something that I've noticed too. I don't think it makes it cool. I think what it is, it's a flag you raise.
It's a virtue signal.
It's a virtue signal, yeah.
Yeah.
That is something I have noticed. I know how absurd it sounds on its face to say, like, people are purposely fucking themselves up. I was like, yeah, I know when you word it like that, but there is like a look, and there is a demeanor, and there's a way that people are presenting themselves to signal to other people, like, I'm with you.
Yes.
It's like the mask. It's like the mask. Right.
It's a body mask.
Yeah. If the mask was,
they're masking their beauty.
The mask was BMI.
Yes, they're masking their beauty intentionally. And then you also have the weight thing. But there's a third factor going on here that is scientifically provable.
Right. Okay.
How many people have left California since the pandemic started?
I believe
net
in 2021 was 80,000, I believe, net.
We're almost to 1 million.
Almost to 1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was
800,000.
800,000.
Yeah, I think it might have been the number that you were thinking of. And we're almost to 1 million now.
That is a right-wing myth.
No, it's provable by
Bureau census
data.
I'll show you.
Facts, statistics. You know what else is provable? According to psychology, so the reason that these people are leaving is because they're conservatives who don't like what's going on in California, and they're getting the fuck out. Well, according to Psychology Today, they did a study that shows conservatives are more attractive than progressives.
I have seen several of these studies.
So, science weighs in. Conservatives look better. New research explains why political conservatives hold a beauty advantage. So there you have it. Psychology Today. So, you have people getting fat from the lockdowns. You have people intentionally making themselves look unattractive to virtue signal. And number 3, you have conservatives who are more attractive,
right,
scientifically speaking, than liberals.
Clinical
leaving the state.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's where we're at right now. And I see it on the street every day.
So let's break down a few of these, though. So what's the first one that you said? You said fat people getting fatter during COVID.
Yeah.
So you can actually trace that back to political ideology, because conservative people were more likely to go, when the pandemic started, like, I'm just going to go about my day. I'm not really going to change anything. I'm going to keep running outside. I'm going to keep training. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're a white supremacist.
Right.
Which is what
Which gives you this article from MSNBC. Pandemic fitness trends have gone extreme. Literally, white supremacists' latest scheme to valorize violence and hypermasculinity has gone digital. So, dude,
gone digital.
Here we digital white supremacy is now we have. Because we talked about that movie, The Sound of Freedom, right? And the complete backlash. I'm like, we're talking about child trafficking. Are we not all on board with this?
Yeah.
Like, this is
it's the easiest thing to be against.
We can't have enough awareness for this particular subject.
Right.
So in the span of 2, we see this article, and then the backlash against The Sound of Freedom, which is one of the highest selling movies in the summer right now, is in the span of 2 weeks, we've gone, if you are anti-child trafficking and you are pro staying in shape, that makes you a white supremacist. This is fucking full clown world at this point.
It reminds me of what I was talking to you about the other day on the phone, where speaking of all the dour, deep, dark stuff that we tend to get into, there's 2 things going on. So we see ourselves existing in like a fort, and we're fortifying against a attacking army.
Yeah.
Right. And inside this fort, the main problem is all the stuff that you and I talk about. The main problem maybe being starting with the Federal Reserve and all the psychopaths that are in charge and are paying both sides of a conflict to go to war against each other to make money off of human death and despair. Just this awful shit, right? And then there's all these sub problems that kind of come out of that. And the clown world stuff, like you were just talking about. So we're in this fort, and this military, this foreign invader is attacking. Meanwhile, you have somebody in the fort who is like the latrine is backing up, and so now like somebody has to go like plunge the toilet because you can't have shit. I mean, yes, this isn't the most important.
It's like the metaphor you
thing.
brought up the other day that the Titanic is sinking.
Yeah.
And you're trying to bail out the water, and there's also
but then
a fire.
There's a fire. Someone has to put the fire out. You have to plunge the toilet inside this fort, or else everyone's going to get dysentery, right? So somebody has to divert their attention away from the major threat, the core thing that's the reason the fort is there and what you're fighting against, to go fucking plunge the toilet. And that's how I see all these little like clown world distraction things. They are distractions, but you can't simply
they also have to
ignore
be addressed.
them.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyways,
very frustrating.
Did you want to go back down where we?
No, go for it.
No. I just mean like, so yeah. I think what you're getting at is that it's political. The fact that we don't see as many attractive women walking around, it's literally political. God, is anything not political?
It fucking drives me crazy. I thought about that because they put out the award for the most popular fast food restaurant in America. You want to guess what it is?
In-N-Out.
No, Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that headline. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yep. Yeah, this is
here we
well.
go. A complete shitstorm.
Is Chick-fil-A a publicly traded company?
No idea. I just met a guy that owns Chick-fil-A here.
Oh, it's a franchise, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Franchise.
I think we talked about that before. Biggest shareholder, Chick-fil-A. Nope, private family-owned company. All right, there you go.
There you go. Free market at work. Most popular restaurant. Most popular fast food chain in America.
You know that if it was publicly traded, we know who the biggest shareholders would be, of course.
BlackRock.
State Street.
Vanguard.
So,
when I saw this article about basically making the connection to physical fitness and domestic extremism and white supremacy, it's just like nothing will rattle my cage anymore. It's like I could see any headline at this point. I actually read this article. This is on MSNBC by a woman named Cynthia Miller Idris, who's an MSNBC columnist. And it's, I don't know, I'm like speechless almost, but I'm not surprised.
We played that game, didn't we, on the group text thread? Like, try to think of something that's not racist.
We've been doing that for a while. Yeah.
And no one's come up with anything yet.
No, because my buddy that I work with, will just keep throwing stuff out. Well, we work throughout the day.
Yeah.
He's like, camping.
Oh,
there you go.
Easy. I could write that article. It's fucking awful.
Yep. Pretty amazing.
Let's see. I think I saved this. I can't remember why I saved this for you.
Oh, boy.
but it might be a new
this is
sound
rich.
clip.
This is rich.
You've heard this?
Yes.
Okay.
Electric vehicles and reduced population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Think about the impact on something like public health. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
What was that? What was that?
Could you
was that one part?
back up a couple steps there?
Clean air, clean water. I'm on
Good,
board.
good.
Electric vehicle. Okay, I see where you're going. And there's something else on that list.
Reduce population.
Reduce the population.
Yes.
Okay.
How are we doing that, by the way? I mean, that only can mean one thing. Killing people.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot reduce the population without people dying.
Yes.
Dying. Dude, my son says that all the fucking time right now. He walks around the house quoting Donald Trump. It's so funny. Next visit with Mammy is going to be a fun one.
I don't think you're supposed to say that part out loud.
Dying.
Yeah, there's been Kamala Harris. So one thing that I did over that vacation is, I don't know if I talked about this. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but I went back and listened to all of these podcasts at the beginning of the pandemic and see like what they were saying. Because what we throw this around quite a bit when we talk to people about things. You say, what do we say all the time? Like whatever it is, climate change, domestic extremism, the COVID, whatever. It's like, your Peter Hotez, your Anthony Fauci, your Rochelle Walensky, your Al Gore's, your Greta Thunberg, whoever you keep throwing at me, it's like they've got all this stuff wrong over and over and over. And it's like, you still have this like religious conviction that what they're saying is correct now. Just before we talk about the actual subject that we're talking about, I need that explained to me. Like it's interesting. It's like a psychological phenomenon. And so to basically prove my own theory, I went back and listened to all these podcasts about the beginning of the pandemic, right? About who was saying what, right? Because when no one had any information at that time. And then I also listened to when they rolled out the vaccine, like what are they saying now? And I spent like hours and hours and hours of like seeing who got stuff right, who got stuff wrong, you know what I mean? Like who made the adjustments as they went. It's a pretty fascinating thing to do. And so like a lot of this stuff, when I, because the arguments you have with people that, well, where are you getting your information? I'm like, well, I go back and listen to, I don't know, Dave Smith, Part of the Problem, Pete Quinones, who else? T-Lav, Ryan Christian, Charlie Robinson, Macroaggressions podcast. I'm like, they got stuff pretty right. Like they were, even when no one had any information, when they were saying stuff like, it's going to be more than 15 days to flatten the curve.
And when you have
they're going to shut school.
Dumbass like Sam Harris talking about it, saying that, well, like Brett Weinstein.
Mm-hmm. Brett Weinstein was another one.
Who, he got it all right. And you have his former friend Sam Harris saying, well, it doesn't matter that he got it right. He had no way of knowing at the time that he was right. And so he was just, it doesn't, he should have been following the experts on this.
That is a ludicrous perspective.
It is. And if it's easily disprovable in my mind, the way I look at it, like, okay, if it was just dumb luck, then how come all of these people said the same thing and got it right and didn't accidentally get it wrong?
Right.
If it's just dumb luck, how come they all who think alike,
they all have the exact same,
we all distrust the government. They all are anti-statist to some degree, to one degree or another, but definitely on that side of things. Yeah. How come they all, in this way of thinking, got it right from the beginning? They knew from the beginning that this was a giant crock of shit.
Right.
Explain that.
And so if you take Sam Harris's logic, well, let's flip the coin over, right? So therefore, what? We still listen to you. The only people we should be listening to that got things, even if it's by luck, but that got things continually wrong over and over, that's who we're supposed to listen to. Like that is, there's no rational logic behind that. It's just, it sounds like someone pouting in the corner. So that basically describes Sam Harris's podcast at this point.
Pretty much.
Yes.
God, I listened to it the other day just because I had to hear I knew
you handle the Sam Harris beat. I handle the NPR.
Yeah. Talk about dark. I can't remember what the topic was, but it was the exact same thing. Just like it was about Robert Kennedy, of course.
Right. Okay. I listened
same
to that
exact fucking.
Yeah.
You listen to Sam Harris?
I did.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It was exactly the same.
So, anyways.
I'm sorry, you Ching Chong Chinaman. Nobody is home.
Wrong button.
Computer has racist Tourette's.
All right, let's get into the meat of the show. What do you say?
All righty.
Good morning. Time to get up and go to work.
You got me one.
I ride on the bus into the city every day. I sit on a seat.
Thanks, sir. So I had an interesting conversation with a friend, someone who I actually love quite a bit, really good person, but is also the epitome of someone that just reads MSNBC all day and walks, still ranting about Trump, still ranting about people not taking the vaccine. It's just like if I knew a dude that was the epitome of the acceptable opinion, as Tom Woods calls it, it would be this guy. And he's very, very vocal about it.
I didn't hear you say guy at first, and I just assumed it was a woman.
No, this is a guy.
I guess it reminds me of this person sounds like the walking embodiment of the Nextdoor app.
I was sitting there while you were talking. I was like, I know a Nextdoor comment that's coming here. God, that place is a gold mine.
It really is.
Yeah, it's up there with the Sam Harris podcast.
I gotta say, there's diamonds in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll ever be able to do another podcast, by the way, without getting stuck in a conversation about Nextdoor. It's just too great. But
because we people think we're being hyperbolic or we're making, like you guys create this hypothetical straw man and poke fun at it all the time. And then I'm like, okay, fair enough. And you get on Nextdoor, like, nah, these people are out there.
No, I'm actually kind of holding back a little. But I was going to say the comment that I made about the woman who is everyone's a woman except for me on Nextdoor.
It's you and one salty old dude. This is everyone off.
She has a stalker. And by the way,
oh wait, is this that young girl?
You know what? No, God, that young girl. Yeah. What the fuck? Get a fucking life. Yeah. She goes on Nextdoor just to say it's not cool that you guys respond to my posts on Nextdoor. I'm a young woman and I'm afraid of. It's like,
and she just keeps posting over and over.
Come on, girl. Like,
so, dude. To be fair, it's you look at this. You're like, dude, lady, go for a jog. Like, you need like a hobby or something. But here we are, like, I'm going through all our posts. Like, oh my god, this is hilarious.
I know. Yeah, dude, don't tell her to
showing him to my wife. Like, oh my god, look at this one.
Don't tell her to get a hobby. It's going to ruin a lot of our fun. But listen to this post. Tell me if this doesn't like make your spidey sense tingle a little bit. What do you do when you have people stalking you and attempting to break into your house? I have cameras, but I have a lunatic ex-boyfriend who, of course, hacks into them and cuts out the times when I think someone breaks in. The cop said I need more evidence. How do I do that when he's always 2 steps ahead? I'm so emotionally drained. It just doesn't. It seems like bullshit to me. And this person can't spell the word and. They can only spell the word A-N. They leave the D off every time they...
That's an odd tick.
This doesn't seem like a real, I don't know. I'm not buying it. Anyways, I did say on this post, get a gun and learn how to use it.
Right.
What
I'd say go back a few steps. Don't date psychos, but
yeah, right. Well, that ship has sailed.
As we always say, you have that same, there's a weird phenomenon in people's brains, which I don't know, psychologically can be explained to some extent, but some people's pickers are just broken. Right. I always say.
Right. Yeah. The people that say, I do not want drama in my life. I want a drama-free life. I hate drama. There's always people with the most drama in their lives. Stop talking about drama. That might be a good start.
That's always such a great indicator species of people that are constantly talking about, I got to just change my mental thing and I need less drama in my life. I'm like, I never talk about any of those things, and I don't have any of them in my life. I'm sure there's a connection there.
Right. It is. That's exactly what it is.
The worst drama of my life is like my aging parents and shit gets fucked up at work. I'm like, but I can figure this out. One's a natural phenomenon for which I have no power over. The other one are mistakes that I have to fix, and life goes on.
Yeah, and your drama needle goes to a 1, basically.
And if I posted about that on Nextdoor, it'd be the most, well, it'd probably fit right in, to be honest with you.
But the reason I brought it up is because I'm pleasantly surprised by Nextdoor. The person that you were
going to say, how'd that gun comment go over on Nextdoor?
Yeah. Not great.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of the comments were arguing about statistics and, like, for example, people with guns in their house are exponentially more likely to be killed by those guns than people that don't have guns in their house.
Say again.
The statistic, and I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah. I've heard it before, though, that people with guns in their houses are exponentially more likely to be killed by guns or by those guns, their own guns, than people who don't have guns in their house. And I said, well, people with refrigerators in their house are exponentially more likely to be crushed by the refrigerator than people who don't.
It's like someone say, like, you know, 99% of shark attacks happen in less than 10 feet of water. Yeah, because that's where the people are. I understand.
Totally.
It makes sense to me.
Exactly. But anyways, the point that I wanted to make, the only reason I brought it up is because I'm pleasantly surprised that I make a comment like that, telling people to get guns, and I get 10 women liking that comment.
Nice.
They don't write a response or anything because they don't want to wade into these murky, shark-infested waters of Nextdoor, but they liked it. And it was all women who were like, yeah, totally, get a fucking gun. Yeah.
Not bad.
I know. There's hope.
Yeah, so little Nextdoor silver lining.
There you go, motherfuckers. Some good news for you.
So I had this conversation with a friend, and we got into conspiracy theories, and he did the wave of the hand, like, ugh. And
is this a friend that I know?
Yes, you do know this person. And this is something like psychologically I'm really interested in. So this would be, you know, we learned quite a bit with that conspiracy theory quiz that we gave everyone, like who was willing to even engage in some of it.
Fascinating.
And the thing that was really stood out to me is like, I don't understand this knee-jerk reaction of like, I'm not going to entertain any thought, any conversation, any consideration that any of these could possibly be true. I'm just going to wave my hand and say they're all complete nonsense. That was like fascinating to me, right? And so I started looking into this. And so I put together, this is something I came up with. It's the 2 parts of the conspiracy equation, right? And envision the conspiracy equation. The answer to the equation is it's all nonsense and it's dangerous and you shouldn't even talk about it. And I'm actually disgusted that you're even bringing this up. That's the answer to the equation. Now, the other parts of the equation, there's 2 parts. One was very obvious to me. It's something that I could easily kind of figure out just by people's reaction. And the other one, I'm like, there's like a missing part of this equation.
So this is like an algebraic formula that you come up with.
Yes.
Okay. And just to clarify, that response that is the given part of this equation, you know, x plus y equals the response that you just said. Was that response the same? Was that the response that your friend gave? Or is that an extreme version of it?
No, he was right in there. Because I've had this from, I'm not just talking about him, I'm talking about several different people.
Right,
but he was like right in there.
Sure. Okay.
So, and it's kind of funny because I had already been thinking about this and I started kind of like looking into stuff and looking into like various conspiracy theories and just psychologically the way that people approach these things and how it kind of differs from the way that you see the world or whatever. And even though I was already thinking about it, I was trying to figure out like this missing part of the equation.
I love the mathematical approach.
That's why I put my glasses on today.
Those aren't real, are they?
No. I'm trying to virtue signal.
We all do it.
He gave the exact, like, you gave the right answer. Like, this is really interesting. So I started kind of, it was a little deceptive, but I started kind of feeding him stuff and I actually made up a new game that I play with myself. Mm-hmm. We'll edit that last sentence out.
We will edit that out for sure. We can put that in the sound clips.
I play it in my head is what I meant to say.
We need to cue that Divinal song right now.
I come up with the response and I feed someone just a few things. This is kind of shady, but
try to get to that response.
Yeah, and I'm not like, I don't spring on him like, I knew, like I was trying to get you to say that, but it's just
keep it yourself.
Purely for my own internal,
entertainment.
Right, right. And so the one that I had picked, because this guy, he just zips around. It's like Trump, and it's like climate, and it's like I think he kind of waits for me because he's like kind of loaded for bear. And he just like starts going off. He's like, when I show up, I take the stone out of the dam in his mind. He's just like, here's everything, because he knows, I'm not on the left, I guess we would say. I was like, okay. So he started yelling about Ukraine and Putin and everything. And I'm like, okay. And it totally worked. I go, the response is, this one's different. Okay. And I made some comment. I'm like, I just let him rant. I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot the left's all in on war now. That's interesting because I came from the left and we were always anti-war, but I guess things have switched. And this one's different now. I was like,
one step.
So, damn, dude. Fucking walk off Homer.
Amazing.
So back to the conspiracy equation is, so let's take like one of the conspiracy, like recent intro 101. A lot of it, one that's kind of macabre and interesting, but gets a lot of like kind of like normies to kind of think about things. And that would be like the Jeffrey Epstein case, right? After he, using my finger quotes here, committed suicide. Because we had always talked about when that first happened, he got busted. And I remember it was like, when you start, the list starts coming out of the people that were involved on the, on that island and were on the Lolita Express, and the pictures were coming out and the flight logs were starting to kind of, there's a lot of like chatter about like who possibly, the most powerful people in the world going to this place. And so what was our reaction? I was like, yeah, I get the feeling this guy's not going to make it to trial. It's like, good luck with that.
Totally.
And he's in prison. And so, he's looking at the possibility of being in prison for the rest of his life. And then when he, my finger quotes again, committed suicide, I remember being surprised because there was a lot of like kind of obvious nefariousness and questions to be asked.
Sure.
And all of the kind of NPCs around me and the mainstream media were just like right on board, like, yep, he committed suicide. Nothing else to see here. I was like, really? Nothing else to see here? We don't have any questions? Like, we're not going to at least ask a couple questions here? Because here we have a guy that was intentionally running one of the world's largest, underage sex trafficking rings / blackmail programs for the most powerful people, global elites and political elites in the world. And he gets busted. He has leverage over, what we call the cathedral, the deep state. Everyone, we had CIA there and FBI and powerful politicians and heads of the largest corporations in the world. And he has dirt on all these people. He gets busted. He's going to prison. And he's probably like, you don't think he's probably going to want to like save his hide? He might start like dropping names. And then all of a sudden he commits suicide. And like the timeline like perfectly kind of adds up. And it was fascinating to me. It's like I don't know if your experience was the same. It's like the people that just, he committed suicide. I'm like, that doesn't seem at all odd to you. Like, shouldn't we at least have like a conversation?
Yeah. What is that phenomenon? Because the recent debate with Dave Smith, Clint Russell, and the Krasenstein brothers. It was kind of hard to listen to because it's like listening to people argue,
right,
unfairly.
Yeah,
both sides talking over each other a lot, even though they tried not to. But what I got out of it was that
I couldn't make it through. I listened to a couple minutes. I'm like, this is not flowing very well.
Yeah. Plus the audio sucked, and you're listening to a Zoom call. Basically, it was hard. I did make it through it, but it wasn't easy. But these guys on the left just couldn't accept that the things that the point, basically the whole debate was the FBI. They couldn't accept that the FBI was corrupt because there was no definitive proof that they were corrupt, even though they've been proved to be corrupt in the past.
Yeah.
That these things that Dave and Clint were arguing about, that they weren't totally 100% verifiably proven to be fact.
Right.
And that was just kind of what they said, well, until it's proven, I can't. And that's the same thing with that Jeffrey Epstein thing. It's like, unless it's, dead to rights, proven, there's fingerprint, then they can just say, you can take the easy way out and just say, well, you can't prove it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, come on,
you can't prove Saddam Hussein didn't have WMDs. You can't prove that.
Right.
We also didn't find any after we murdered a million people.
That's a good parallel.
Yes.
Exactly.
So when you'd have these discussions and you bring up the Jeffrey Epstein, and which I did with this person. I was like, well, let's just hit a few kind of conspiracy theories, and you're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and I was like, yeah, it's just you don't have any questions about that, and I'm like, well, what kind of questions? You're kind of being dismissive, like what questions? Like what he committed suicide. Well,
I can't believe there's people that actually think that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the 2 guards on a shift are 2 guys from another spot. That wasn't their typical beat that they're supposed to be working. All the cameras that were supposed to catch, he was on suicide watch. All the cameras were broken. They went to retrieve the cameras. They threw the cameras out the next day, so they couldn't be examined. And he also had extra bed linens, which you're not supposed to have on suicide watch. Like, don't you think that the dirt that this guy had, and he's looking at the possibility he is going to prison for the rest of his life, and he has leverage that could bring down some of the most powerful people in the world, right? Don't think there's a possibility that some fuckery went on? Not to mention the autopsy. The guy goes, someone clearly broke this guy's neck.
Yeah,
you don't get this.
And you think that the most powerful people in the world are just going to go like, well, I guess the gig is up. They're just going to roll over. And
here's what drives me crazy about when we talk about conspiracy theories or false flag events is there's always like one last little element that makes me think like this is like the calling card of like the deep state or like the powerful elites. It's like one very, very like all these things as like it's pretty obvious. And then at the end, what about the cameras? Yeah, they're all broken. It's like it's their little like calling cards. Like, yeah, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, you plebe, you have no power. Like, it's almost like intentional. They do one thing that's like over the top, like to just like kick sand in the face of like, people asking questions.
It's a little calling card saying you cannot touch us.
Which makes me think. I wonder. There is a possibility that the company that maintained those cameras were the same ones that ran the cameras in the White House because those were also broken that didn't catch the person who left cocaine.
Have they said that the cameras are broken?
They said they have there's no way of finding who would have had that. There's no footage.
They said there's no footage?
They said there's no footage and there's no way of finding out who brought that cocaine into the White House.
I know they said there's no way to find out, but I didn't hear them address the actual camera.
What's your guess as to the level of video security in the White House? If you had to guess, yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Like Ring doorbell, probably. Where's that sound button?
I got a dog.
Yeah. Well, the dog was sleeping.
The dog was sleeping, yeah. Yep.
Just like the guards at Jeffrey Epstein. Weren't the guards also sleeping?
The guards were both asleep, too.
Both asleep?
Both asleep.
Yeah.
Both guards were sleeping. All the cameras were broken. And all the cameras were thrown out before they could be examined when there's an investigation.
Well, if something's broken, you throw it out. That does make sense.
But you're playing the other half of the conversation that I had multiple times with people, and I had just had recently. It's like, how did he commit? He was on suicide watch. The point of suicide watch is to make sure that someone doesn't commit suicide. Correct? Where were the guards? Well, they both fell asleep. What about the cameras? They're broken. Can we look at the cameras? No, we threw them out.
They just said they're broken. We threw them out. Obviously.
Yeah. How did he kill himself? Well, he hung himself with what? Bed linens. Someone on suicide watch is not supposed to have bed linens. Yeah, we'll look into that. We'll get back to you. It's like, we need better psyops. You guys got to do better than this.
No, but like you said, like it's sand in the face. of everyone else.
That's
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, plebe.
Yeah,
go back on 4chan and have these conversations all you want.
JFK is the same way. Just go drop a bullet on some random gurney inside the hospital. That'll do.
So. Back to the conspiracy equation, because the first part of the equation, remember that I saw it as 2 parts, and I know the answer, right? So I'm reverse engineering this. I'm trying to figure out the answer. And so the first part was pretty predictable, and it's the one that we see. It's the ingredient in the NPC stew that is, it's basically the stock, and that's the tribal binary. It's like, I ride or die. I'm here for my team. And, if that goes against all logic and rationality and, truth and, whatever, we'll just deconstruct truth. I'll have my truth at this point, and I can call, facts white supremacy, and we'll figure it out. But the end result, much like this conspiracy equation, I already know the answer. and it's this. And what do I have to say to like reverse engineer my answer? I will do. You know what I mean? Because I am an ideologue, and I'm basically a low status primate that just like I have to stay with my tribe, like, and that's it. And I saw this. This is when I figured out the first part of the equation with Jeffrey Epstein. Is you would bring this up with people who I knew that were very far on the left, and they immediately dismissed it. And then I go, I think I know where this is going, and I started playing the game in my head, which because I've been doing this for several years. Is at that time, the first name that was attached to Jeffrey Epstein was Bill Clinton. And at that time, it was like Bill Clinton has flown to that island, 40-something times or whatever. And then also, one of the first pictures that was circulated was Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein at Chelsea Clinton's wedding sitting next to the Clintons. And so when you'd have this discussion with someone, you'd bring it up, like, you don't have any questions that there's some kind of fuckery involved? I was like, this guy is, this guy has dirt on, like, the most powerful people in the world. And I'm like, you see that we're looking at like Clinton, Bill Clinton flying there several times, who doesn't have the greatest track record as far as young women. And their immediate response is like, well, Trump flew there too. I'm like, okay, I know where you're at in your head. My response was, okay, cool, put them on the list, get them all on the list. I want to know everyone that went there. I don't care if they're.
That response is such a for whatever reason. That is in the tool belt of lefties. Like they can't. Their Trump derangement syndrome is so powerful, that they think anyone who doesn't agree with them is obviously a Trump supporter. Right. Like you and I'm sure, are labeled Trump supporters.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I did vote for the guy, so I mean, it's some
aside from that,
some semblance of truth to that accusation. But we criticize the hell out of him and think he's a terrible president and probably a terrible person.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I'm not a Trump supporter.
You're not?
Well, although I did vote for him.
Okay.
But that's always this kind of like, it's just like in their tool belt. Like, well, Trump did, it's like, I don't give a fuck.
I'm not talking about Trump. Who cares? Fine. He sat next to Bill Clinton. Who cares? That's not what I'm talking about.
He's a criminal also. Put him on the fucking list.
That's my point. They're all fucking criminals and pedophiles.
Yes.
And so you'd have these discussions with people, and then you go, hey, after laying all of that out, are you still sticking to the fact that, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide? I mean, de facto, 100%. There's no other.
Hold on
questions.
a second. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
I really don't like interrupting you.
Yeah.
Despite what you think.
This is news to me.
But I just want to I want to track what you're saying carefully, because are we still on the X plus Y equals the answer conversation?
Yeah.
And we have X figured out, but you still haven't explained what Y is.
Yeah, we haven't got to Y yet.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what is X?
X is the political binary. It's like whoever this sheds in a bad light, if they're on my team, then the conspiracy theory is not true. If I'm a statist, the CIA definitely did not kill JFK, right?
Gotcha.
If the only thing I know about Jeffrey Epstein and him being connected to the most powerful people in the world, right, is Bill Clinton, and I'm on the left, I'm a Democrat, and I'm with her, and I voted for Bill Clinton, then he definitely just committed suicide. Okay. Right.
But there's a component missing.
Right. So we're trying to figure out the other part.
Why do you see there being a component missing?
Because
help me understand that.
Because not all of these conspiracy theories lay out along politically ideological lines.
Okay.
So I had to figure out, I don't know, there's another variable that I'm missing.
Do you have an example?
We're going to get there.
Okay.
So as far as the one with the Clintons, right? And you go, it's like, I just saw this person brace up for defense, right? Because they're like, oh, you're about to like disparage the Clintons, who are like rock stars of my team, right?
And this guy just reaching for their on their tool belt for the Trump spray,
right? They just committed suicide, and he just committed suicide, and that's the narrative. Hey, here's a dark side note: in your social circles and of all your working relationships, how many friends have you lost to suicide?
Probably. I mean, how far? Well, two that I can think of.
Two
off the top of my head. Yeah,
not 47. Moving on.
Well, I don't know that many people.
So to get back to this missing part, because this is something that really made sense until recently, that your typical NBC, would dismiss anything conspiracy related. And that was that missing variable to the equation I was trying to find. And I use that term conspiracy, as we always do on this, fairly loosely, for this reason, that when you look at the conspiracies, they have this uncanny knack of coming true down the road, which is something that we covered quite a bit on this, which is the point of the conversation, that I've had with this multiple people and this guy recently. I'm like, a lot of these seem to kind of come true. So, here we are with this retroactive kind of track record, going back to the thing we were talking about earlier, like
climate change.
Yeah. If you guys are getting things wrong over and over and over, and you're still sending me articles and talking points from the same people, like I don't listen to these. And here, I retroactively listened to hours and hours of podcasts. I'm like, man, these guys nailed COVID. They nailed, the lockdowns were going to be more than 15 days. They're going to shut down the schools. There's going to be boosters. They're going to try to mandate the vaccine. And, then we're going to start to see excess mortality rates, and it's, so when I listen to a source like that continually gets things right, I'm like, okay, I want to hear your thoughts on climate change or Ukraine or whatever. Like, you seem to, you got a pretty good track record here so far.
Yeah, you might call someone like that an expert.
So as going back to before, so we can take these conspiracy theories that are something like, this is the discussion I was trying to have with this person. I'm like, well, let's look at this. So, in early 2000s, it was considered a dangerous conspiracy theory to be posting online or telling people that Saddam Hussein didn't have WMDs. His first response was like, that's not true. Or, what part is not true? He's like, that's not true that, people were demonized for saying that. I was like, serious? I'm like, I sure was. I remember saying that and being yelled at, and that was all. And there was a propaganda campaign that was saying,
do you remember Freedom Fries?
Yes. Freedom Doors.
That's Freedom Bulldogs.
Freedom Bulldogs. Freedom Ticklers. I mean. So then you go from there. I'm like, okay, so that to me is like a pretty middle of the road. Another good band name, by the way. Our Patriots.
Sorry.
And then I'm like, so even when you go to the absurd, which we have done before, and you say, like, I know that you guys only look at the little phrase as a conspiracy theory. So I was like, but even then you can backtrack and look in, like, there's some. So when you poke fun, and when I said that this name, this person actually recoiled a little bit. I was like, so you listen to like some of the stuff that Alex Jones says, and he like shuddered a little bit.
Really?
Like, it was so
like
disgusting.
A little glitch? Like,
yeah. I was just like, bear with me. So when Alex Jones pounds his fist on the table and says they're turning the frogs gay, right?
Fricking frogs.
The frickin' frogs gay. Okay, poorly worded and slightly hyperbolic. I get it. I was like, but is he just going on some conspiracy theory rant, or is he talking about the work of Tyrone Hayes, professor of integrative biology at UC Berkeley, who studied the effects of atrazine in the water, because all that stuff ends up in the water eventually, which emasculated 3/4 of the frog population and turned 1 in 10 males into females. I was like, that's pretty true what Alex Jones is saying, though poorly worded. And I know that he says a lot of like off the wall shit. I was like, but that conspiracy theory, if you just take a little time and kind of look at some facts, and then of course you get the eye roll. Like, where'd you read that? I was like, news.edu.berkeley. It's the study is still up there. Like, you can read it. I can send it to you if you want. It's a peer-reviewed clinical data from a reputable source, right? And when you tell people that, you just get like they shut down, and you're like, oh, okay, you don't read stuff,
or
you see headlines,
they find the
talking points, and you send it on Twitter,
or they find the flaws in the study, and they tell you that study was only the sample size was so small, it was blah blah blah. It's like, okay, fine. Every study isn't. All of my studies suck. All your studies are great. I get it.
You guys and your charts and your studies and your fucking clinical peer-reviewed data.
Come debate me, bro.
Oh, masks only have a 1.3% efficacy rate, says the CDC. Oh, would you read the whole article there, Buttercup? Oh, the new Israeli study says that there was not a single COVID death for someone under 45 with no pre-existing conditions.
We never brought that up. That is fucking atrocious.
If I need to know something, Brian Stelter will tell me. All right. Exactly. Dude has a stellar track record. Him and Rachel Maddow. So this begins the other part of the equation. And this is where, after having these discussions, and especially having one with this person recently, is the reason that people have this like inherent knee-jerk like dismissal of anything outside whatever the acceptable narrative is, fed you by a for-profit corporate media complex, by the way, is that almost always gets consistently things wrong. But the reason why you are consistently faced with this defiance is this. This is why I think, and tell me if it makes sense. And this would be the other part of the equation. It's a basic like low vibration, like primate behavior fear response. Because if this one thing is true, if this conspiracy theory, if I wave my hand and dismiss it and go, that's not true. And then you show them like this, study out of Berkeley, right? That the frogs are turning gay. I don't know what to tell you. Like, unless this guy's completely lying, is what you are doing is I think that person, it's a fear response. Is like, if I let this person's foot in the door, like I risk them dismantling the entire underpinnings of my entire like ideological foundation. Because if Alex Jones is right about the frogs being gay, you take something like ridiculous, then I have to start going like, well, what do you say about COVID? Yeah, and what's he saying about Ukraine? What's he saying about climate change? And that's why I think people just shut down. There's like, nope, not going to listen. Like I can't risk that. Like my ego can't risk it, right? I'm facing the prospect of dismantling my entire like view of the world at this point, and I can't. That's a risk I'm not willing to take.
Yeah. So their binary response or their binary identity plus their fear response is going to equal the answer.
Yeah, which is just dismiss it all outright, right? And I think a lot of this is what is tied to the religion of statism that we talk about all the time, because a good deal of these conspiracy theories are about how the deep state has lied to you, or the deep state has pulled off a false flag event, or killed its own citizens. Yeah, you know what I mean, for political gain.
Which is why they have to retreat to the area of, well, you can't 100% factually prove it. So,
right.
So I'm, like for example, the turning the frogs gay thing. I guarantee you right now, if we look up Politico fact check, whatever, some sort of fact check on that, it will be something along the lines of, well, yes, frogs were switched from male to female. They did that, which frogs do tend to do that sometimes in the wild.
Especially when they are immersed in astrazine.
Yes. But they didn't actually turn gay.
Yeah. It'll be some nuanced,
technically false or statement.
Like, Event 201, false. This was a hypothetical exercise. It didn't actually happen. We know. That's the point. Like, that they had a hypothetical exercise.
That's what's disturbing about it.
Happened. So, as I was mentioning earlier, is that one thing I did on vacation, like, mostly due to my complete inability to relax, is to go through just hours of podcast, right? And I just used the COVID pandemic as a good starting off point, right? Because it's fresh in our memories. In some places, we're still battling the fucking fuckery from it and all the nonsense. And it's pretty easily provable, you know what I mean, about, as what I say, it's like when you see videos of like Fauci, like, I never condone lockdowns. You're like, we have the internet. Yeah. Go back and look at these things. And to see, like, I just want to know, like, who got stuff right and who got stuff wrong. And I did everything. I went from Joe Rogan to Dr. Drew to Glenn Greenwald to Matt Taibbi to CNN to MSNBC to Fox to Peter Hotez, the teachers unions, everything. It's like, you just go back and like, I want to see what they're saying in the beginning of the pandemic, the middle of the pandemic, when the vaccine came out, what they're saying now, right? And who was ideologically consistent. And you can't, it didn't go into it like, oh, they got it wrong, like, fuck them. But if they got it wrong and just kept doubling down or didn't acknowledge that they got it wrong, then it's Peter Hotez. And it's like, yeah, fuck this guy. Totally. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people go like, even like Joe Rogan got a ton of shit wrong. I just recently listened to old Joe Rogan. God, who's he talking to? I don't even remember. But he's talking to Mike Baker from the CIA. It's ex-CIA agent Mike Baker. And this is,
I don't know if my eye roll just came through over the microphone, but yeah.
But it was right before the election. of 2020. And they were talking about like Biden's not really fit for office. He's like, but he's in luck because it looks like he's going to pick Kamala Harris, and she's extremely competent and on top of her game and is definitely suited for the job.
That's what Mike Baker said?
Mike Baker and Joe Rogan both said that. I was like mowing the lawn. I was like, wow. History is not going to be kind to that one.
Interesting, though, because we wouldn't put Joe Rogan in the same category of those people that you listed off earlier, you know, Clint Russell, Dave Smith, Charlie Robinson, all those guys. He's not there. He's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
He's close, but he's not there, right? And so it makes sense that, and that's why he's not there.
But
he doesn't think about things from that perspective, that kind of awake to all the chicanery that's going on in the world perspective.
Yeah.
That you and I are, you know, probably there. I mean, I don't know another person who is more anti-establishment than myself. So maybe you. I mean, you, me, you know, the Liberty Tree crew.
All of our friends, yeah.
Yeah. But no one I ever talk to is even there. I have to soft pedal every little bit of anti-statism to everyone that I talk to. And Joe Rogan would be one of those people.
Right.
He's just not there. It's not surprising that he didn't get everything right from COVID, because he's a little bit seduced by just the statist mindset,
the narrative,
statist narrative. Yeah.
Correct. P-Brick.
Yep.
I'm gonna get me a beer.
So, as we were talking about earlier, when I was listening to all this stuff, and then you point these things out to people, I'm like, well, you know, I can go through, we all can go through, and you can figure out like who got stuff right and who got stuff wrong. And by no means does that mean that you completely dismiss that source or that other one that got it right is infallible. You know what I mean? But I do take that into account. That is the prism for which I take in information. I consider the source, as the phrase goes. And when people get things continually wrong, either by pure incompetence or complete obedience to whatever narrative is given to them, or they could just be brokers of a dishonest agenda, which I think it's usually like, where the three circles overlap? Some people think it's two, but it's mostly three.
Yeah, you're talking about the Venn diagram?
Venn diagram, yeah.
Remember Venn diagrams, those three circles?
And so then when you go back and, you know, and like I checked all the different sources. So when you see, you know, when you get vaccinated, the virus stops with you, Rachel Maddow. There will be no need for a booster, Peter Hotez. And you see stuff like we have over 100,000 children on ventilators, you know, Justice Sotomayor from CNN. It's like, okay, I'm going to remember these things for the next thing that you say, right? Because none of these people went back and, not an apology, but like amended what they said or acknowledged that they got things so severely wrong. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, since the public, our society has a memory of a goldfish, you know, people are surprised when you bring this stuff up. Or they give you the one-liners, well, the science changed. You know what I mean? Or they didn't know then. I was like, well, as we were saying before, a lot of people magically got it right. And so I'm going to keep like listening to those people. So this is where things get fucking dark.
All right, good. I was tired of all this good news.
Because what does this mean for us here today? And I was putting these things within the context of a larger framework. And that when you have these conversations with people about the CBDC, the Chinese-style social credit system, the call for an internet ID, and the constantly repeated Biden propaganda talking point that the biggest threat to America is domestic extremism, right? I think that we can agree that there seems to be this coordinated push going into this one direction, which we basically what created this podcast, right? That kind of narrative. So we hit this on a couple episodes ago, but remember we were talking about how surprised we were that it seemed like the Biden administration, you know, each one has like its thing, right? It's like main kind of subject.
Each administration?
Administration, correct. Yeah. And how kind of surprised we were in the beginning that it seems like he's taking the wildly successful war on terror from the Bush-Cheney administration and turning it inward into its own country. And I was like, whoa, Like, I wasn't ready for that, right? And then we've seen now, since we've done like deep dives on it, it's like, oh, they're just trying to shut up dissent.
This is from the guy who ran on unifying the country.
Yes, the great unifying president. So when you look at things like the CBDC, the social credit system, the internet ID, the propaganda coming out of the Biden administration about domestic extremism, like, you were being sold to you the tools to combat a boogeyman from which they created, right? And which sounds exactly like the Patriot Act, by the way. It's like, here's the problem. We have the solution. We already had the solution. And so we're off and running. And what do we call that? The Hegelian dialectic, or the problem, reaction, solution. Like, we're going to create the problem. You're going to freak out, and we're going to give you the solution. We already had the solution, right? It works backwards. So we can do dives on the CBDC, the social credit score, the Internet ID. These things are all like in the works right now. I mean, the Internet ID, they're already trying to pull off in like the UK and some other countries. Like, it's definitely, there is a push for it to come here for our own safety, right?
Yes.
Because it's just, God forbid, there might be some random, horrific, domestic, extremist, terrorist act.
Yeah.
And then people go like, yeah, we need an Internet ID, because the Internet ID would have stopped this, right?
Right.
False flag.
Of course.
So when we were talking about domestic extremism, the war on terror, climate change, fighting white supremacy, getting ready for the next pandemic, or eliminating hate from the internet, whatever the chosen boogeyman they tried out that month, here's what you have to remember. It's never about that thing, right? It's about control and subjugation. It always is, every time. And it always has been, and it still is now. It's about surveillance and censorship and control and increase and top-down authoritarian power, which is the common through line for almost everything that we talk about on this podcast. And can it be stopped? I have no idea.
No, the ratchet turns in one direction.
Yes. But the awareness, like, if we could just make you people aware of how you're getting fucked while you're getting fucked.
People? You fucking bigot. I knew it.
And so the way that this kind of plays out as a microcosm, like, here's a perfect example to hit like something that we did recently, is like, you have Peter Hotez, who is the mouthpiece for the approved narrative, coming against RFK Jr., who is questioning the approved narrative. And what is Peter, like, he's saying, RFK Jr. goes like, let's have the debate, let's have the discussion. And Peter Hotez plays perfectly in line with this ideology. He's like, he needs to be deplatformed. Pull his videos. Joe Rogan needs to be platformed. Need to be censored. Spotify, all this calls, like, it's censorship. And so that's their main tool in their belt, right?
Yep.
Is just complete silence, stifling dissent at every, anyone like even questioning things. So I bring this up to, I'm not going to call it a prediction so much, but because it's already happening. But I want to create the awareness for what I think we're about to see. Much like when we talked about, I remember the notion of the limited hangout. We're like, you're going to start seeing this phrase like start to pop up more and more and more. And we did. And so those of us that are participants in the alternative media sphere, which we are, and the podcasts that we listen to, they got the plan and everything right during the pandemic, and all the research I did, is I bring this up because we always seem to be, let's take us out of the equation, but let's take your Dave Smiths and your Clint Russells and your T-Labs and your macroaggressions and your alternative media sphere. They always seem to be a little ahead of the curve for seeing what's about to come around the cultural bend and what we're going to see like really pop up like consistently, like a coordinated media push. Like, we're talking about this now, like, this is the thing now. And they always seem to be about like 6 months, a year ahead of the curve of like bringing this stuff up. And so this is something that has been popping up to me more and more lately, although I did have to do a pretty good dive. So this could be something like very obvious of us in the beginning of the pandemic going like, I don't think masks work. And if they did, they wouldn't let you substitute a bandana just over your mouth. You know what I mean? As we talked about. And now we see that masks don't work. And you have, I appreciate it, but some NPC, telling you 3 years later, like, yeah, it turns out those masks didn't work. You're like, I know, Dick, we were saying that 3 years ago. Like, where were you then? Like, they don't have that capacity for critical thinking or the walk out the front door test that we talked about.
The desire.
The desire.
It's about that fear that you were talking about
right
before.
It's that fear response.
Yeah.
Or you have like,
because the studies were there.
Yes,
they weren't done recently.
Yes, or you have like the most bizarre. I'll come up with the most, we'll come up with the most bizarre shit ever, and go like, this will be funny. Let's do a segment on booster rage, and then the WHO comes out and says like one of the symptoms of the boosters is psychotic behavior. Like, dude, I was joking. It's like, you can't write comedy anymore. So this is something. This is going to be the new thing, I think, within the next couple of years that we're about to see. Are you familiar with information disorder syndrome?
No.
Oh boy.
Oh God.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So I want you to remember this term, because I think this is going to be something that we're really going to start seeing a lot of, because we have this election coming up. Like the left is in a shit spot unless they're going to run like Galvanism.
How sweetly does that dovetail with "Don't debate me, bros"?
This is where this comes from.
It's like, Trump derangement syndrome. No, that's not really a thing.
Yeah,
but this is a thing. Information. I don't even know what it is. I'm just by the name, I can already kind of guess. Like you really just shouldn't have all this information available to you because it's causing mental issues.
I would say you are right, but it's fucking way worse than that.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
So there's no doubt in my mind this is coming the more that I looked into it. And by coming, I mean weaponized by the deep state and the ensuing power structures, complete with the ever-present fear-mongering, coordinated propaganda campaign by the corporate media complex. So this is what information disorder syndrome is, IDS, not to be confused with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
The sharing or developing of false information with or without the intent of harming. It includes disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. Okay. Grade 1. Grade 1 shares false information without the intention of harming others. That's disinformation. This is for the people, because people conflate these three terms, right?
Yeah.
Grade 2.
I don't even know if I could tell you the difference.
I was always shaking on them too, and now I got some clarification.
Oh, thank God.
Yes. Grade 2, and these are going up in severity.
Severity,
yes, yeah,
of course.
Grade 2 shares false information with the
Surprised
intent.
They're not color coded.
Funny you should say that. I actually have a chart on here that they actually are color coded. Grade 2 shares false information with the intent of making money or political gain. That's misinformation. And then your grade 3 shares false information with the intent of harming others. They do have these broken down into a Venn diagram, the two circles, in which malinformation and misinformation are your two circles. And in the middle is disinformation. If that makes sense to you.
Okay.
So misinformation is relatively harmless or whatever, and then the more severe case is malinformation. Like I'm purposely trying to hurt people with my information, and then the overlap is going to be your disinformation.
Yeah, so you could be hurting people with information that's true,
right?
And that would be malinformation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this is the important part, or the terrifying part.
That's a stupid concept. Like hurting people with true information.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Is that how is that even a thing?
It just sounds like
that's like saying
that's like Sam Harris's whole worldview. That's how he sees the world. You're hurting someone with true information,
right? I
guarantee he's going to be on board with this because this is coming.
Well, it's like telling someone you're fat. What? Well, I'm sorry, but it's true. You're fat. Sorry to hurt you, but you are a big fat fatty.
So here's where things get not fun. This is being considered a real medical diagnosis, and this will be weaponized and intentionally.
Medical diagnosis?
Yes.
What?
Yes, it's a medical / psychological diagnosis. So think about it like this. This will be weaponized and intentionally, like this intentionally abstract notion. It'll be used to punish people who speak out against what the acceptable narrative is. Think of a red flag laws, but for ideas.
Right.
That's essentially what this is. Or thought crime. We got thought crime.
We do.
At this point.
So you saw that Minnesota passed that law?
Yep.
Making it illegal to say things?
Yeah.
It's not going to stand, right?
Not yet.
It will be struck down by the Supreme Court, in my opinion. We need to fight whatever you're talking about right now, about to say. Just throwing it out there. This should not stand either. Like red flag laws, this has to be taken down.
Well, if we have a choice, because think about it like this, is when I point out that things are intentionally abstract, that's done intentionally, which we talk about quite a bit. So I share some clinical data from PubMed, possibly making a connection to the rise in excess mortality rates to the Pfizer vaccine. Is that grade 1? Is that, misinformation? Is it, I have a podcast, or is that disinformation? Would be grade 1. I have a podcast, so I gain from it. That'd be grade 2. I gain from it somehow, by saying that. Or does this talk someone out of taking the boosters, which they seem as harmful? Is that grade 3? Is that malinformation?
Yeah.
So what are they going to do with these people here? So here's a couple quotes. So this is quotes, dude. This is where stuff gets like, this has been like keeping me up at night sometimes. Yeah. Quote, repeated sufferers at the grade 1 level and all sufferers at the grade 2 and grade 3 level need psychosocial counseling and sometimes require strong regulations and enforcement to control such information disorder.
God.
So if you question the vaccine, the lockdown, the Ukraine war, Hunter's laptop, anything, they're going to force you to go to psychosocial counseling. Example, this is another quote. Anti-vaxxers are listed under the grade 3 level, considered malinformation, under the same category as people that falsely accuse someone else of rape. So read that as the current contender for the Democratic nomination for president of the United States is in the same category as someone that falsely accuses someone else of rape. Malinformation, grade 3 IDS, information disorder syndrome.
Have you seen the movie Brazil?
Yes.
It reminds me of that movie, and I just can see you or me being stuck in some room with a unintelligent psychologist saying, trying to question us about this, and us going insane, trying to say, no, there's data backing up what I'm saying. This is true. These are factual statements, and it just having no effect because
that's why we need to get to work on our Liberty Tree, how to exercise in the Gulag book.
Well, I know that is
how to stay fit in the Gulag.
We are falling behind on that.
So this push to cure the actual medical issue that the state is going to diagnose you with, will require, quote, rumor surveillance and, quote, cognitive and behavioral therapy. Now, it's important to note that these things you will be attending are not voluntary, not done by your own volition. These will be...
Yeah, can they force you to go to... I guess they're
going to.
Yeah. They already do. Like, a court can order that you go to psychological therapy or even to... psychological prisons.
Yep. Yeah. And I could see by the look in your face, you're just about to ask me if things got even worse. They do. So in addition to that, as being labeled by the state as a sufferer of information disorder syndrome, you'll be required to take part in, how fucking creepy does this sound, motivational enhancement therapy.
Struggle sessions.
Yes, motivational enhancement therapy is basically it's a directive, person-centered approach to therapy that focuses on improving an individual's motivation to change. Motivational therapy, also known as MET, was used quite a bit in trying to break people free from their addiction, like alcohol and addiction, and it's getting people to basically change the way their brain works.
Yeah,
so they can be integrated back into society.
It's straight out of Chairman Mao's
the use of cognitive behavioral therapy, rumor surveillance, psychosocial counseling, and motivational therapy motivational enhancement therapy will be used to reintegrate the person who is deemed suffering from this medical diagnosis back into normative society. It will be a mandatory ideological rehabilitation treatment protocol. We're going to send you to a place where you can get the help you need.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just doing a little work, and what's this definition? The government does not consider the re-education camps to be prisons. Instead, it views them as places where individuals can be rehabilitated back into society.
Well, thank God
That's
for that.
From the Vietnamese prison camps, re-education camps.
That was the Vietnamese government?
Yes. So we're looking at
spot on.
information disorder syndrome, re-education camps, and thought police in America.
Yeah.
What a great time to be alive. And you will be labeled, if you question the narrative and you go against the acceptable opinion, they're talking about going one flew over the cuckoo's nest on your ass.